Hello there. Welcome to Sanders Presents. It is the 17th of September. It is 2021. I am Greg. Welcome to all of you. So, I thought to myself, in terms of topics, what were we going to be talking about? And this was something that had been suggested by a YouTube member, and I thought, hey, you know what? I got some time. Let's jump in it today. So, this is a follow-up to a pre-recorded video we did talking about get rid of gear, which again is a bold statement, but I do stand by it, and I do stand by the problems of looter shooters and gear and trying to apply a looter dynamic to every kind of game. Hey, Saucy! Welcome aboard. So in terms of looters, or in terms of gear chasing, I guess just to kind of give you a bit of an introduction, the biggest one that I can think of is MMOs, massively multiplayer online role-playing games. World of Warcraft, Star Wars The Old Republic, numerous other failed ones, Elder Scrolls Online. But the idea is that you get gear, you get better gear, you take on higher level enemies, you get into bigger raids, so on and so forth. But it's always about gear, and whenever you're running something, you're guaranteed a reward, and it's always a valuable reward. And we need to pay attention to that because that's going to be something that plays into it. Now, over time, the idea of gear in a lot of these MMOs have changed dramatically, and statistics and stats and number management have all changed and have decreased, actually, so that the statistics that you chase are far simpler, far quicker to understand, and easier to follow, and you know the rewards you're getting. And when a raid is coming up, you know that you have to be geared. You know you have to have a certain gear level or item level to be able to enter that raid. And then that raid will reward better gear. So then when you have all the gear from that raid, then the next raid will come along, and you'll be ready for that raid, and you'll be geared for it. Now, Destiny had a bit of a similar system, and Destiny is where this starts to be applied to consoles and to the looter-shooter dynamic that was also spearheaded by Borderlands at the time, but Borderlands primarily focused on just weapons. Destiny introduced a gear mechanic, the idea of raids, and Destiny tried to apply an MMO-light atmosphere. And Bungie was incredibly successful. I mean, I really have to give Bungie credit. They were incredibly, incredibly successful at pulling off an MMO-light dynamic that people were starving for. People loved the cycle in the first Destiny leading up to the Vault of Glass, and the Vault of Glass was incredibly exciting and incredibly rewarding. Over time, it was. If you were there in the very beginning, Vault of Glass had some issues, just as all of Destiny 1 did, where they weren't rewarding you. They were really just trying to drag out your playtime, and that's something MMOs never did. MMOs, you always got a drop. You always got a valuable drop. But Destiny introduced the idea of RNG, where maybe you don't get something valuable. Maybe you don't get something worthwhile. And that hurt the game. And that that idea has fed into further mechanics that are these MMO-light mechanics. And we've seen it with The Division. We've seen it with numerous failures. We saw it with Anthem as well, and the list can go on and on of so many people who have tried to come in and tried to capture the Destiny mechanics and failed. And we are now entering superheroes. So we have Marvel's Avengers. Marvel's Avengers has a gear system. Now, the interesting debate that comes up, and so I want to tackle some of these comments and questions head on, is, and I disagree with this on principle, because someone said not every superhero game has to be the same. Yes, I get that, but at the same time, not every game has to be a looter. And a lot of them are. And I don't see why it has to be applied to a superhero game, or that it really needs to. And I fundamentally don't think superhero games need this. If you look at the progression in Batman, if you look at the progression in Spider-Man, if you look at the progression in Guardians of the Galaxy, which again you'll see more of, but none of these are based on gear. And they're all vastly different, and they're all very unique power fantasies, but you still feel like the character. You are not hindered in any way. You don't feel like a lesser version. You are that quintessential idea of that character. You never feel less. And that's something that, in my opinion, Avengers failed to capture, partly because of the looter mechanic, the grinding mechanic. I just don't think, on a fundamental level, it has a big place in superhero games. Now, in terms of... Oh, real quick, Saucy says, I know it's not multiplayer, but I really liked how God of War 2018 handled the skill tree and gear system. Marvel's Avengers should have just had the skill trees, and that's it. I actually agree. God of War is a great example to pull from in terms of, again, just like Batman, just like these single-player games. But God of War, I love God of War 2018. And again, I've said it time and time again. In 2018, like, God of War was my game of the year. Like, to me, God of War was superior to Spider-Man. I legitimately, just full transparency, I thought God of War was, if you looked, if someone puts God of War and Spider-Man in front of me, God of War was the better game. Flat out, God of War was the better game. Deserved to win all the awards. It was absolutely incredible. And I 100% agree. The skill system in that is brilliant, and the gear system in that is brilliant, and you always feel powerful. You don't feel lesser at the start of the game. You don't feel like Kratos is a lesser character. Whereas in Avengers, you have a very disparate group of characters, very disparate group of power sets. And I don't think on a universal level the gear applies well to them. In such, like, okay, you have Iron Man, and that's great. Iron Man's a character that, hey, gear makes sense. But it makes sense if Iron Man was in his own game. If Iron Man is upgrading, if you stop as Tony Stark and you're tinkering with your gauntlets or you're working on your repulsors, that makes sense. Hey, Christian, thank you. Thank you very much. So it makes sense if you do it with Iron Man. It makes sense with any kind of mechanical-based character or armored character. You could even apply it to, Ant-Man. Anybody that uses actual gear, you could upgrade. Captain America, though, he just has a vibranium shield and his normal suit. Gear doesn't work. And the gear also doesn't have any physical effect. In World of Warcraft, you see the evolution. In Destiny, you see the evolution of your character. But with superheroes, and because of licensing, you have to keep the iconic appearance, and you have to have costumes or cosmetics, and unfortunately, that's what they charge for. And so you can't really affect your appearance. And again, I go back to a joke, and it's an old joke that I have on this channel, but it's no different than Hulk. Every time he gets a new piece of gear, he has to go into invasive surgery. Now, I saw a comment that said, I thought, that a different user said, well, in my headcanon, that's nanites, and they're going in. And that's fine. That's a reasonable explanation. But there, it still is just like me saying, oh, and, he goes into invasive surgery. It's another side of the coin where we're just kind of all making it up to different levels of silliness. Now, obviously, you took it very seriously, and that's okay. That's fine. I'm going to stick with my invasive surgery because it's funny. But again, absolutely, you can take it as serious as you want. And if there is a canon, if there's like some flavor text that I've missed in the game that does actually say it's nanotechnology that goes in and just clamps onto Hulk's penis and bones, okay, let me know. But I'm still going to use the invasive surgery because it's still funny. And it wasn't the only comment about Hulk's invasive surgery that I got, to be totally honest. But again, I'm not gonna focus on all those other comments simply because other people took it far more serious. Sometimes I have to admit, I am a little surprised at how serious, people want to apply logic. I think a little bit of a sense of humor is good. I mean, we are talking about superheroes. A lot of them run around in colored undies. Got to have a little bit of fun. The invasive surgery is kind of my go-to joke, though. It's the easiest one and the easiest example I can give. But again, I recognize the comments. They just, I mean, again, it's a very serious application to something that was kind of just a joke. By all means, though, if in your mind, like, you say, hey, it's nanites, that's totally cool. So now, what does this mean for the future superhero games? Obviously, Avengers is not a game that will exist forever. That's not a statement on the quality of the game. I'm not getting it, I don't care. But it's just a reasonable marketing observation. These live service games, they just don't last forever. Eventually, the partnership will run dry. It will expire. The licensing will expire with Square Enix. The game will shut down. Any purchase you make, therefore, none of it matters, right? It just doesn't matter. It will shut down eventually. So what comes next? That's what I'm interested in. And honestly, there is good things coming from Marvel. There's great things coming from DC. But since we're talking about Avengers, let's kind of look at Marvel. Obviously, if anybody wants to analyze other aspects of gear, I'm happy to. But let's just kind of look at Marvel. Okay, so they have a formula with Spider-Man now. Spider-Man on the PlayStation was successful. Now they released Miles Morales Spider-Man, a spinoff. That was successful. So now we're getting Wolverine and we're getting Spider-Man 2. I'm going to go out on a limb, and again, this is not some groundbreaking discovery. I'm going to go out on a limb, though, and say that Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine are going to be successful, right? I mean, come on, Mac. So, again, that's not a groundbreaking assessment. That's not a groundbreaking theory. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say that those are going to be successful. Hey, A, welcome aboard. A is a wonderful YouTube member, as is Saucy. And thank you to my YouTube members. So, they have a formula for single-player games. And they're not gear-based. And now we look at Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy is coming out. I don't know about its success. I really don't. Guardians isn't Spider-Man. Guardians is not the X-Men. And Guardians is certainly not Wolverine. But I do know that Guardians has a fan base because the movies made money. But, real quick as an addendum, we know that the movies don't translate into sales. We know that because Avengers bombed in sales. Avengers did not sell well. So we know that it doesn't translate. Like, there's not a one-to-one of every person who bought a movie ticket for an Avenger film went out and bought a game, because they didn't. And the same... I'm getting a call in the middle of the stream, but it's Rob, so I know... Oh. I dropped the call. Oh, no, Rob... I'm going to blame Rob for that. I think Rob dropped the call. So, they have a formula that isn't gear-based, right? And they have very well done gear-based games. They have a formula outside of gear-based games. Obviously, Avengers is gear-based. Obviously, it's too intertwined. You can't take the gear... You cannot take the gear out of Avengers, obviously. I know development. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying, hey, rebuild it from the ground up. But the gear system in Avengers is broken. It's not fun. It's not engaging. They're taking the wrong lessons from Anthem and Destiny. And that's my biggest problem. And we have history. We have actual living history of examples of what not to do. And they took the wrong lessons. They need to apply more of a modern WoW aesthetic, or I'm sorry, not aesthetic, but more of a modern WoW idea is what I mean. Because you need to be rewarded when you run this high-level content. And you need to be rewarded with high-level rewards. But also, the breakdown of all these percentages, it's nonsense and it means nothing. The idea of chasing numbers is boring. We've seen statistics over time. Marketing and focus testing shows that over time, those number statistics, people disconnect with them and then they leave the game in droves. Audiences do not connect with that. They want rewards. They want rewards that they can quickly and easily understand. And you have to do more for a game than provide a photo mode. I'm very sorry, but you have to be able to have engaging content. A photo mode is not engaging content. Let's see. Something. I don't know. Christian says Insomniac has a better chance of developing Avengers due to their character development. Not saying current character development is completely bad, just saying it would have had way more of an immersive. I mean, so I think I kind of get what you're saying. So, like, for one, I'll give you Insomniac definitely had a better arc in their story. The character and the narrative was had far better development. In Avengers, it just all feels kind of superficial, and it really does kind of end up feeling like cosplay. You know, there is great combat, don't get me wrong, but it's hindered by so much of the gear nonsense. And gear needs to be overhauled. Gear needs a massive overhaul, and Crystal Dynamics has been back and forth on statements on, oh yeah, we're doing this for gear, but oh no, we're not doing a major overhaul. We're doing little incremental things. And so far, like, over a year now, they haven't really done anything, and gear desperately needs it. I mean, if you're going to give something that's looter, if your basis is built around loot, you need to provide better loot and more engaging loot. And again, that's one of the biggest problems with having all your loot hidden and all your rewards hidden, and all you're left with is, the cosmetics, but you have to buy the cosmetics, so you're not really getting rewards that you're seeing. And there's a disconnect there. And I get it. I know everybody feels differently about this, but focus testing shows, I saw this back in the day, but focus testing shows that people want to associate and see what they're getting. And with superhero games, it's hard to do that because, yet again, you got to have the costumes. And you don't want to affect the costumes too much. And you don't want to override the costumes. And then you have to deal with licensing. And there are rules with licensing costumes as well. Then there's just all this kind of nonsense. But the heart of the character, yeah, Insomniac did a better job of. To be frank, I 100% believe, even without having played it, Insomniac Spider-Man is going to be better than Crystal Dynamics Spider-Man in Marvel's Avengers. I don't think that's a crazy statement to make. I don't think anybody's going to walk away from Marvel's Avengers going, oh my God, that was the best Spider-Man I've ever played. I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't think that's going to happen. TLN says, why would they do numbered gear instead of visual gear? I don't know if I exactly understand the question. Do you mean... Are you talking about in terms of the statistics, in terms of the gear levels? I'm not sure if I understood the question. Farmer and Son says, Sanders, how are you? I'm doing really well, thank you. Professional Avenger loves the gear they got. Okay. Cad Bane says, Gotham Knights will make Avengers look terrible because Gotham Knights is actually going to launch with more than 2 villains. That's another problem. I agree with that. One, there aren't really amazing rewards, but also you're not really being inundated, and there's not enough of a variety of villains for you to combat against, and then defeating those villains offer great rewards, and the villains don't really have much of a strategy. There isn't a great amount of strategy associated to those villains, and I think that hurts in the long run as well. Again, I'm reminded of, I can give you 2 examples, but running the Vault of Glass and working with 5 other people, that was amazing and so much fun to figure out the strategies. But also running a 40-man raid in World of Warcraft is really, really fun as well, and figuring out the boss's strategies. There's really engaging content to be had there. And most of the time, even in Destiny now, but between Destiny and Avengers, the enemies are really just sponges, and that's very boring. Also, they're just empty. They're just mostly robots, androids, whatever you want to call them. But yes, that's something that Gotham Knights will have an edge over, especially, if you want to compare a co-op experience. I do believe Gotham Knights will be a far superior co-op experience, to Avengers. In terms of data mining, not most recently. I haven't. I've been data mining. I've been digging into something else on my own time that I can't, unfortunately, I can't talk about yet, but I've been working on looking into something else. TLN Nello says, yeah, why would they focus on stats for their gear system over visual changes to your character? Okay, yeah. Again, I absolutely agree, especially when the stats are just so dull. I mean, even off the top of my head, like I can go into WoW and I can remember the important stats for WoW. I can remember, oh, okay, I need to focus on strength if I'm this class, or I need to focus on intellect if I'm this class. But I mean, I have to be honest with you. In Avengers, it didn't stick with me. All those little, I mean, what is it? Might is one of them. I know might is one of them, but like it didn't stick with me. Then that's not a fault of the consumer. That's a fault that is entirely on the game, making those small numerical incremental increases completely boring and completely valueless, just no value whatsoever. Casual Avenger says, and I love the streams. I catch them whenever I can live. Hey, thank you. That's really kind of you. Thank you. Farmer and Son, Gotham Knights versus Spider-Man 2 versus Wolverine versus God of War versus Wukong. Who you got? Oh, that's tough. I have to give it to Ragnarok. I assume when you say versus God of War, you mean Ragnarok. I have to give it to God of War Ragnarok. I have very, very high expectations for that game. I truly believe that's going to be something special. I think Ragnarok is going to be a really, really unbelievable experience. I have very, very high expectations. If you wanted to just compare it to superheroes, it's really tough because you're comparing, God of War and Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine. They're all going to be single player, and Gotham Knights is co-op. So Gotham Knights is going to be a different beast. I am very excited for Gotham Knights, though, because of the co-op. I can't wait to run around Gotham. I cannot wait to, run around Gotham with some friends. But in terms of, just the superhero games, I am an X-Men fan. It is Wolverine. It is 100% without a doubt Wolverine. If just in terms of superheroes, it is Wolverine. Because it's opening a bigger door that I'm ready to walk through. Cat Bane is asking, will Gotham Knights have DLC? I've heard rumors about it having a season pass, yes. It's rumors for now, though. Comparing game sales. That's interesting. Yeah, Gotham Knights is only 2-person co-op. Yeah, just you and a friend. But to me, that's still really fun. Okay, so I think Wolverine, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say Wolverine sells better than Spider-Man 2. It's interesting for Gotham Knights because, and I'm fascinated by this. Again, this is me. I'm going to get into marketing for a little bit, so I apologize if this bores you. Okay, so hear me out. We know Batman sells, right? And I love that DC and Warner Brothers are taking this risk. Don't get me wrong. But I am fascinated. I am legitimately fascinated to see how a Batman-less Gotham game sells without any Batman marketing. Focusing just on Nightwing, Robin, Red Hood, and Batgirl. How will they, how it sells? I cannot wait because we know Batman is a huge seller. So I very much so believe that Gotham Knights will sell more than Spider-Man 2. But again, I could totally be wrong because there is no Batman being in the marketing. So it might not, but I still think it has to. We know Batman sells more than Spider-Man. Cat Bane says Batman has to be alive. Oh, I'm certain he's alive. He's just not going to be used in marketing, which is great. I'm okay with that. But I'm fascinated to see how the marketing responds to it, how they sell this game without Batman. Now, is the multiplayer confirmed for Spider-Man 2? No. I mean, people keep going on about that. It's all clickbait. I've not heard anything about multiplayer. All I've heard is that it is dual protagonists. Like, you'll be able to play as Miles and Peter. But God of War Ragnarok coming out on the PS4 and the PS5, I think it has a chance to be a massive seller. So I expect very good sales for God of War Ragnarok. I really, really do. Let's see, what else we got? Saucy says, just finished God of War for the first time. I'm ready for Ragnarok. Oh, that's good. That's good. Love that game so much. Transformers works with online. I agree with that. Transformers is made, I mean, because of the premise surrounding Transformers, it is absolutely made for a cooperative or competitive environment. Like Autobots versus Decepticons, battles across Earth and Cybertron. It is made for multiplayer. It is made for multiplayer. JDC says, do you think Avengers would have worked better if it had been a single player with co-op game? Now, that's interesting. When you say single player with co-op game, what do you mean? Are you talking about in terms of because it sort of already is, right? I mean, because if you think about it, you have the single player campaign. You know what I mean? You have the single player campaign, and then you go into the Avengers Initiative, which is co-op. Cad Bane is asking, do you think Transformers will sell well? Because I think most of the fandom has walked away. I have to disagree with that. I think it could potentially sell well. Now, again, it's relative, but I think Transformers, now again, a free-to-play Transformers game, obviously sales don't matter, and every document we've uncovered shows that the next Transformers game, as long as it is still in development, and, we can play devil's advocate, but it is 100%, it is, with it being free-to-play, I mean, you have an incredibly massive market. I mean, you can get billions of people, technically. So, yeah, I think it has a really good opportunity. Gus says Batman doesn't sell more. Batman's comics sell more. His movies, I mean, his marketing, his material. I mean, even in focus testing, I mean, 100% in the focus testing I've done, Batman's bigger. Batman is the most recognized character in culture. Like, you can be a Spider-Man fan, but the Batman games have sold more. I mean, they're just bigger. I mean, that's just it. Let's see, what do we got? Christian thinks that God of War Ragnarok will be the top seller out of the ones listed, which is totally fair. It has a huge chance to be, especially if just in terms of if we're just looking at the PlayStation exclusives, God of War, Wolverine, Spider-Man. I think God of War will be the bigger seller. JDC says, I feel what ruined Marvel's Avengers was the fact of a game as a live service. Now, that I agree with. I think you could do a co-op game, but I think the live service hurts it because it doesn't really feel alive. Destiny, you can drop into the worlds, you can walk around, and you can explore with other people, but it feels alive. In Avengers, you're alone. You go back to the helicarrier. You're not going to meet up with random other people. You're just kind of alone. It feels isolated. So it has this dichotomy of always kind of fighting against itself, and that hurts it in marketing. You can't just explore a world and run across other characters or other superheroes. Cad Bane is asking, who is my favorite Arkham boss fight? Arkham City's Mr. Freeze. We've talked about it before, so again, sound a little bit like an echo chamber. But yeah, I love how you had to continuously devise a new scenario to take down Mr. Freeze each time. I loved it. I thought it was very clever. Christian says Solomon Grundy. That is another one of my favorites. I absolutely agree. I love Solomon Grundy. But I do have to give it to Mr. Freeze. Mr. Freeze does edge it out. I really, really enjoyed the fight against Mr. Freeze. Casual Avenger says, Avengers needs missions focused on specific heroes and civilians being attacked and saved. I agree. I agree with that as well. Being able to go into the world and save people, but at the same time, being able to go into a zone and save people and randomly come across other heroes, it would make the world just feel more alive and make it feel a little bit more immersive, because what you're looking for is emergent gameplay, at least in my opinion. Again, just based off, focus testing and just based off marketing. You want that in a live service game, in an MMO setting, you want emergent gameplay. So you want the players to have stories. You want them to come across scenarios in the world that couldn't happen otherwise, but it can happen because you're randomly coming across other characters. So you want emergent gameplay so that they can tell stories like, oh, I was in New York, I was Iron Man and I came across Black Panther and we teamed up. Like, it's emergent. It's building a story, and the player is building a narrative around that. And Avengers completely lacks it, unfortunately. And I legitimately mean that. The lack of that kind of emergent gameplay hurts Avengers. Whereas, again, with Gotham Knights will have that kind of emergent gameplay, and that's going to help that game, in my opinion. That's going to help that game have a better connection with the player base. It's no different than Arkham Knight. Everyone I have spoken to in focus testing, there's a lot of stories that I hear the same of. I hear a lot of Halo stories because Halo has a lot of opportunities for emergent gameplay, just like WoW. But one of the things I heard the most of was in Arkham Knight, the Man-Bat, when Man-Bat attacks you. That kind of emergent gameplay just stuck with people. Everyone remembers the Man-Bat event. And everyone remembers when he breaks out. Like, that stuck with people. And you need those moments, and Avengers lacks those moments. It lacks it in terms of a single-player narrative, but it also lacks it in terms of a cooperative environment where you're working with other people. Cad Bane said, I really liked the villains' designs in Arkham. They did their own twist, and I really, really liked the female villain designs, especially Harley Quinn. I like Harley Quinn's design in Arkham Asylum when she wore the nurse's outfit, because I thought that was an interesting play on. But I will also, I was, this is a bit of an anecdotal. This is a little bit of a story. When I was doing focus testing, and it's a story that just stuck out with me, but the idea of female characters in video games came up, and Harley Quinn was one of the things that came up. And one of the people started a conversation at the round table, and they were like, "But why is she a nurse? Isn't she a doctor?" And I had to take a step back, and I was like, because even I didn't really like. I did not catch it, but I was like, "Oh yeah, Yeah, Harleen Quinzel is a doctor. You're right. She is a doctor. She's not a nurse." Which led to a really interesting 30-minute conversation on, not just the significance of Harley Quinn, but also the removal of her career achievements, which was an incredible meta conversation to have, and it all started because of Arkham. Now, again, everybody's going to walk away from that with a different feeling on Nurse Harley Quinn, but I will still, I like to always point out both sides of a conversation or both sides of the idea. But absolutely, in terms of character design, I really think that they did a great job on keeping the heart of the characters. Catwoman's design is amazing. Poison Ivy's design. Mr. Freeze, I honestly think that was the best design he's ever had. I'm a little iffy on Arkham Knight's. I'm a little iffy, just a little, on Arkham Knight's Batman suit, because I think it's a little too techy. But again, I digress. It's a personal opinion. That's not a big deal. But I just thought it was a little too tech suit for Batman. Little too armory, Iron Man-y, whatever you want to call it. Deadly 8 says, "Oh, I've been missing a lot of your live streams. I need to turn on notifications." Absolutely turn on notifications. It helps with YouTube's analytics and algorithms. If you are subscribed, please turn on notifications. TLN Nello says, "Harley Quinn can give me the vaccine." There you go. I gotta be honest, I would be nervous if a crazy psycho doctor had a needle. JDC says, Arkham games paved the way to Marvel Spider-Man. I played the hell out of both games, as did I. I mean, yeah. Like, the current superhero era we live in, it's all built on Batman. Like, Batman, Arkham Asylum, and Rocksteady, they need, respect needs to be paid to them because they built the modern superhero game. Everybody rips off their mechanics, their block mechanics, their dodge mechanics. Everybody rips off their combat. Assassin's Creed, the Middle Earth games, Spider-Man did it. I mean, like, they've all ripped off what Arkham built, from the gadget system, all of it. And, we owe it to Batman. We absolutely do. Let's see. Professional Avenger, keep comparing live service games to a single player experience, 8 characters with more on the way, it's impossible to give those 8 plus characters that single player experience. Yeah, but you can still be immersive. You can still try to build something better, and you can still have emergent gameplay. You know, you're not really a part of the full conversation. You're picking out little nuggets to make a case, but you're not making a full case because you're just pulling out little nuggets. You're not actually trying to contribute to the full conversation. You're just trying to find a different way to defend Avengers, which is fine if that's the boat you want to be in. You can be in that boat, but I just want to make a point that you're trying to make one single case. You're not trying to have a healthy debate. Because, again, you picked out. I mean, you talk about a single-player experience, 8 characters more on the way. You're saying that they shouldn't try? Because, I mean, they did give us a single-player campaign with Miss Marvel. Could they have done a better job the way that they presented that campaign? I think they could have. In terms of narrative and story structure, is it okay to ask for a better story? Is it okay to ask for, stronger narrative moments, better emergent gameplay? I think it is, because it's all scripted anyway. Avengers doesn't have an open world to explore. They literally give you missions that are heavily scripted. They give you boss encounters that are heavily scripted. This isn't a free roaming game that offers a lot of emergent gameplay. So therefore, we have to rely on them to provide us with moments, with emergent moments. And they're not. Whether it's 8 characters, whether it's 9 characters, an actual case can be made that more can be done. Just like more can be done on the gear system to make you feel like that character versus, oh, hey, this piece of gear takes my might up 0.1%. There's a disconnect. And I understand, again, you're making the debate about something else, but there is a disconnect between, if you're going to have Avengers and you're going to give us these characters, you can try to get us to feel like these characters more. You can try to make it a more immersive experience and not just cosplay. Whether it's in the structure of the single-player campaign that they offered, because they did offer that, or something more in the post-campaign launch. I like what Casual Avengers said. You can add flashback missions and iconic missions for each character. That is genius. That's something we've talked about on this channel. There's so much you can do to focus on a character, because this game, while it likes to tout itself as a live service, it's not a healthy live service environment, and it doesn't offer a significant avenue to really explore. There are so many missions. There are several missions, and we can debate the number. I couldn't give you the number off the top of my head, but there are missions that you have to play as this character. You have to play as this character for this mission. If you're going to do that, if you're going to offer those kind of experiences, then you can structure them better. You can build a narrative through them, and you can give us moments with those characters so that it doesn't feel like cosplay, so that it is more immersive. And now, again, I will continue to point out, I still believe very strongly, I don't think anybody's going to walk away from Spider-Man in December saying this is the best Spider-Man I've ever played. I mean, obviously, Insomniac Spider-Man is going to be the better Spider-Man game. Just like if we had a Black Panther game, it's going to be better because it's tailored to these characters, and it's not built around gear, and it's not built around chasing something. And I think we lose a little bit of the experience when we're chasing gear. Because, again, we're already playing as superheroes who already have insane power levels. Let's see. Cad Bane says, what is the point of the spikes? Oh, on his gauntlets? Yeah, a Casual Avenger's right. Like, he can block swords with them. I mean, I give you, in Gotham City, there are a lot of people using swords. They're basically defensive, so that, hey, if he grabs somebody by the arm, pop, he can pop, that's really it. They're like a defensive, offensive thing. That's it. Let's see, what have we got? Deadly 8 says, I'm wondering if developers will learn from the failure of Avengers and Anthem, or if they will keep chasing the live service nugget. Unfortunately, I think they're going to, I really do think they'll keep chasing the live service nugget. They want the money from the marketplace. I tried to do a little bit of research in terms of just kind of seeing what the pulse looked like, in terms of the audience. I went to I looked at Reddit, which is always awful. All I really found on Reddit were a bunch of people with costume wish lists, which is really disappointing and sad. Obviously, I need more from a game than a wish list for costumes. My wish list for Marvel's Avengers has nothing to do with costumes. It has to do with, we need more engagement. We need better enemy. We need better variety. We need more engaging content. In terms of cooperative experiences, we need better content if you want this to keep going. I think the whole idea of the marketplace and cosmetics and stuff is kind of nonsensical to me. And so I really I don't even know what to make of that. Let's see. Avery says, I think that speaks a lot to my experience. It's all heavily scripted and doesn't offer enough to keep me immersed. Peanut Butter Jelly Time says it's a live marketplace game. That's it. That sums it up very, very well. Casual Avenger says, a mission set in World War II for Cap would be amazing, or Iron Man fighting his way out of the cave. I agree with both of those. Both of those would be amazing, like, story thematic moments that you could have. I absolutely agree. Cat Bane says, Lego Marvel's Avengers is more enjoyable than Marvel's Avengers. Yeah, I like the Lego games more. I won't disagree with that. But honestly, I like Marvel Ultimate Alliance far more, too. I have played more of all 3 of the Ultimate Alliance games than I have of Marvel's Avengers, just because Ultimate Alliance is far more... Well, hell, I've played more of X-Men Legends. Come on, Mac. X-Men Legends is incredible, but I've played more of those games than I have Marvel's Avengers, because those games they're better. And there's costumes in the game, which is crazy. I can't believe we've reached a point. I'm still shocked at how games have... the evolution of gaming, and how so many people are at least in terms of focus testing and marketing and the general consensus, people are just okay with it. Like, oh, hey, yeah, we used to be given costumes that we could secretly unlock, but no, we'll spend money on them. It's crazy to think that that's the state. And, like, I get it. It's fine if, it's fine. This is entirely subjective. This is my opinion on it, though. I've been playing games since the early 90s. So for me, the idea of if your favorite costume isn't in the game, you have to buy it with real money, is kind of beyond me. I'm not the audience for that, and I will always be honest and admit that. I am not that audience, and I disagree with it on a fundamental level. I will not ever be okay with a marketplace that sells you your favorite costume. I'm sorry, that's just me. Alexander says, also personal gripe, a lot of the costumes look horrible in my opinion. Yeah, I agree. Some of them I'm really surprised, like, whether it's just recolors that they charge for or the Tron-looking costumes. And also the hypocrisy. They talk about, oh, we don't want to change it because we don't want to hurt the heart of the character. And I'm like, you have Tron, what? What are you talking about? You don't want to hurt the heart of the character. Or no, they said the integrity of the character. What are you talking about? You have them running around in like, they look like Power Rangers. What are you, you're not, no, come on, Mac. I just don't like the lack of honesty. Casual Avenger says, I put a lot of time in X-Men Legends. Oh, I did too, Mac. God, I love both those games. I love them so much. Let's see. Deadly 8 says, my 3-year-old brother is becoming a huge fan of the X-Men. What's your daughter's favorite teams in comics? Oh, that's a great question. Thank you. In terms of influence, because I will freely admit that I probably have a little bit of influence on my daughter. She talks a lot about the X-Men, and she talks a lot about the Justice League. Again, I've always said it in this household. I've always been honest with all of you. I'm a bigger DC fan. So my daughter adores the Justice League and the Teen Titans. She adores both of them. If I had to speak on her behalf, I would bet my bottom dollar she would say the Teen Titans. Because we are a DC household. I have more DC memorabilia, just between my time in marketing and just due to the work that I've had in the past. There's a lot more DC in this house. I'm just a bigger DC fan. I have far more DC comic books than I do Marvel. I've been with DC for a very, very, very long time. So it is. I'm sure that influenced it a little bit, but I think she would say either Teen Titans or Justice League. Let's see. TLN Nello says they added the neon green skins. They want to talk about integrity. Yeah, I know. See, I don't like the hypocrisy of it. And I don't like that no one, they're a corporation. I wish the best for the employees, and I don't want anybody to ever lose their job. Trust me. But I do have a problem when you have these little, these corporate guys come out and they're just hypocrites. You can't talk about the integrity when you're literally Power Rangers. You just can't. I completely, always call out companies on that. You got to call their bluff. You just have to. Cad Bane asks, who is your favorite Gotham Knight? Nightwing, Dick Grayson specifically. He has the best ass in comics. I'm a huge fan of Dick. Go ahead, Cross. Go ahead. I know what Jesse's going to do now. I look forward to your edits. I know what's coming. Now I expect it. Now I expect Jesse. From here on out, Jesse is a YouTube member. He's absolutely wonderful. But I love it when he, I love it when he takes my stuff out of context and makes little clip videos. But it is like Nightwing. Like legitimately, all kidding aside, I love Nightwing. Casual Avenger says DC heroes are just plain epic. They are. There is a level of, I don't know, like there's just something about these. I don't want to turn like into a whole like Justice League thing, but like Superman, Martian Manhunter, The Flash, obviously Batman. Everybody knows Batman, but like there's a Green Lantern, Hawkman and Hawkwoman or Hawkgirl, wherever you came in, whatever, she's had different names throughout. But these characters they're so iconic to me. They just mean so much more to me than the Marvel characters do. And I love Marvel, don't get me wrong, but DC just means more to me as an individual. Deadly Ace says, you reminded me when EA defended microtransactions in Battlefront 2 and said no one wants a pink Darth Vader. Yeah, I know. They it's funny. Like, EA is the worst consumer company. EA doesn't give a shit about any of us. They see us all as walking ATMs, and the same's true for Crystal Dynamics and Marvel. We're just ATMs to them. All you got to do is look at Marvel's business. What is Midnight Suns doing? They're putting their costumes in a cosmetic marketplace. What's Avengers doing? Costumes are in a cosmetic marketplace. What's their mobile games doing? Costumes are, that's Marvel's business practice. And I just vehemently disagree with it. Like it's the antithesis of what I do and what I consider good business. At the same time, I do find it absolutely hilarious that while EA is the worst consumer company, and because again, I always want to be transparent. EA is actually one of the best rated companies to work for. So again, when we're seeing all this crap go down with Activision and Blizzard, we have to give EA credit. EA is rated as one of the best companies to work for. So again, EA, you won something. Thank God you're not sexually harassing your employees. Bravo. Bravo, because apparently that's hard to do. Let's see. Nethstar says, often brand integrity is just used as a means to brush away criticisms. A lot of companies do this. It's irritating, but it's a thing. Yeah, it absolutely is. I've seen it forever. I completely disagree with it. I disagreed with it in marketing. I do not at all agree with that phrasing. I don't like the phrase brand integrity because, frankly, it will always come off hypocritical. It will. Very rarely is there not a point where you turn and it doesn't come off as hypocritical. It always does. I have to give some credit. Again, this might be my bias. I have to give some credit to DC. The Arkham games did have a level of brand integrity, but overall, DC is very, and again, I consider this a good thing, but DC is very risk-taking. You can go from having an amazing, a very unique oriented show like Batman the Animated Series or Justice League Unlimited, and then you can turn right around and there's Teen Titans Go, and my kid loves Teen Titans Go. So I just feel, so obviously we can debate what the idea of brand integrity is, We absolutely can, and we can debate brand integrity all freaking day long. But I think Crystal Dynamics, the way that they're using the phrase is hypocritical. I think the way Crystal Dynamics is using the phrase is absolutely hypocritical, and I'm completely fine calling them out on it. Let's see. Cadbane says, look what DC did. They actually offered you stuff with DLC. And I agree with that. The season passes in every Arkham game was amazing, and I stand by that. It's one of, I mean, like, I stand by what Arkham has done in terms of their DLC. Brendan, A says, hello, I'm back. They had to eat. Welcome back. And then Brendan says, this game's screwed without a character. With Spider-Man, you have a whole other console. Brendan says, Xbox had more players too before roadmap. Yeah, well, yeah, between the exclusives and the marketplaces, I do wonder if that's going to hurt the overall sales data and what sales are going to look like this holiday. Because when the holiday comes around, Xbox and PC players, and again, which the Xbox Series X is a more powerful console. I have a PC that's more powerful than either console, but the Xbox Series X, the PS5, like, they're all bug-ridden. But I do feel like there is something to be said that when Spider-Man launches all alone in December, only for PlayStation users, I don't think the sales are going to be that big. And again, I'm fine being proven wrong. This is just me making an observation, just in terms of marketing. But I don't see how you excite. Spider-Man being on PlayStation isn't going to get someone who just bought a Series X to go, yeah, I'll go hunt down a PlayStation 5 for, $500 if it's in stock, or please don't go to aftermarket and pay money to scalpers. But in terms of next-gen consoles, Spider-Man is incredibly expensive DLC, Mac, because you got to buy a PS5 if you already have a Series X. You got to buy a PS5, Avengers, and you got to start over because Marvel's Avengers doesn't have your saves don't carry over. So, like, your content is locked on the console you play on. Console family. Obviously, if you play on PS4, it carries over to PS5. If you play on Xbox One, it carries over to the Series X. But if you play on Series X and you're like, hey, I want to play a Spider-Man, that's a massive investment. There's no way it makes that much. There's no way it's going to generate massive sales. It can't generate massive sales. Legitimately, it can't generate massive sales. I am not, as a PC player, I don't have to pay to play online. I don't have to pay for any online services. I have the biggest game library at my disposal. I am not going to go hunting a console just for Spider-Man when I have a superior next-gen experience already. So I do wonder how those sales figures will look and what effect or impact Spider-Man will have. It has, just in terms of raw data, I'm interested in it. Professional Avengers trying to start a debate on Xbox Series X. The Xbox Series X is better than the PS5. As a PC gamer, it just is, objectively. In terms of sales or games, Xbox has a massive library of games, and that's incredibly subjective. Like, you can't make that kind of just blanket statement. And you can't say sales because the game's, it's only just, literally the next gen has just started, and neither console is readily available in stock. They both sell out as soon as they come in stock. The Series X is not staying in stock. The PS5 is not staying in stock. So why you're trying to do this whole kind of ridiculous straw man argument about, oh, hey, it can't touch this. Again, it's empty. It's empty. And that's also not really the channel I run here, Mac. It really isn't. Like, let's try to be objective. You know what I mean? Let's look at it. Let's just look at it. In terms of power, the PC is the most powerful piece of hardware you can get. In terms of consoles, the Xbox Series X is the most powerful console you can get right now in terms of just raw power. That's just a fact. The data doesn't lie. The data itself does not lie. Okay? In terms of games, that's completely subjective, Mac. If you like the PlayStation exclusives more, fine. If you like the Xbox exclusives more, fine. But that's very subjective. So you can't really say that. I'm a huge fan of Halo. PlayStation's never going to have Halo. PlayStation's not going to have Starfield. You know what I mean? Like, I'm excited for those. And at the same time, I'm excited for Wolverine. You know what I mean, Mac? I'm excited for God of War Ragnarok. So, like, this whole kind of bullshit, I got nothing for you there. And I don't really want all of this to descend into that, but I just want to make that very clear. Let's look at the full picture. You know what I mean? Let's not do the clickbait. Let's not try to just, oh, hey, here's a straw man argument. Oh, hey, here's just a little something that I can pull out. No, let's look at the whole picture. Let's look at the whole picture. And right now, the whole picture is these consoles, they're all selling out. So, like, in terms of sales data, it's just a matter of who's producing how many units because they're going to sell out. That's what we're talking about. Deadly 8 says, is it just me or is Black Panther's most iconic suit with the long cape, gold bracelets, and collar should have been in the game? Yeah, it should have. But I mean, a version of it sort of is, but again, it's Crystal Dynamics' version of it. You know what I mean? Alexander says, I sure as heck am not going to buy Avengers again if I ever get a PlayStation. And exactly, that's kind of the point. Like, I mean, maybe if it carried over, people would feel differently, and maybe we can analyze it differently. But, like, right now, like, everything, like, let's look at the marketplace. I'm on PC. I play primarily on, I'm a PC gamer. Like, my favorite, I have the PC, and then I have a Switch. I love Nintendo. My very first console was the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES back in the day. That was the very first console I ever played on. So I have every Nintendo console. So my console is a Switch, and I do everything else on the PC. And then I have a PS4 that was provided years ago by the company I worked for when I was doing focus testing and market research. And I like to always be transparent. The Switch I bought with my own money. The PS4 was provided, though. And the PC I built myself, just for full transparency. So in terms of that, I mean, I feel like as a PC gamer, I've played Avengers. Now, for me, I've gotten characters leveled. I haven't spent any money in the marketplace, though. But let's look at if someone else played Avengers on PC and they spent money in the marketplace, they bought the MCU costumes. Then they're like, oh, I'm gonna get Spider-Man on the PS5, but I have to get a PS5 because they want a next-gen experience, or at least logically, you probably want the newest thing. So you get a PS5 to play Spider-Man, and then lo and behold, because some people still don't know this, none of your stuff transfers. You have to buy all of your costumes and cosmetics in the marketplace all over again. You don't get a discount. You don't get a cross-save. You don't get to carry, your login, Avengers forcing you to log in. None of it matters. And I'm sorry, but that's bullshit. I do not agree with those practices. I do not agree with those practices. Now, again, for more full transparency, because I always want to be transparent, I did not purchase my copy of Avengers. It was provided to me, but I still would not go and purchase another version of Avengers. I would not in any way do that. Cad Bain is asking, did I play Sea of Thieves? Sea of Thieves. No, I don't think so. I don't believe I did if I'm thinking of the right game. That's the one that's getting Jack Sparrow, right? I didn't play that. Cad Bain says Nintendo beats Xbox and PlayStation. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I have no problem admitting that. Like, Nintendo has the best exclusives. I would choose Nintendo any day. That is 100% subjective. I get that, but that is 100% what I believe. I mean, Metroid, Zelda, Mario, Super Smash Brothers, Mario Kart. I mean, Bayonetta. They have absolutely the best exclusives. Let's see. JDC says, do you think that game developers' profits will be hurt due to the fact that even though both consoles sold out, they're being owned by scalpers and not actual players that won't buy games? Yeah, unfortunately, that's the reality of it. If you could, this is why I keep telling people, like, don't go to the aftermarket, don't buy from scalpers, just be patient. We are right now, and again, complete honesty, let's do complete honesty. Right now, we're in a situation where scalpers are buying up these consoles and they're not buying the games. So we're seeing in my opinion, and we'll see what happens over the next 6 months or over the next 12 months if you're in business, whatever your opinion is. But the statistics, if you look at all these purchases of sealed consoles, they're not buying the games. So we're going to see an error in the profit margins because hardware sales will be high because scalpers are sitting on stock. Game sales are going to be low because the scalpers are not buying games. You can't scalp games anymore because everything being digital. You can't really scalp it except for collector editions and bullshit like that. So yes, I do believe it's very possible. I do believe it is very, very possible that there is a transition in terms of what do the sales figures look like. Paid skins do not transfer across different console families. Again, you're continuing to do a straw man argument. You're creating a misleading conversation. If you purchase in the marketplace on Xbox and you go over to PlayStation, your purchases do not transfer. That is a fact. We have done it. We have shown video. We've covered all of this before. Your purchases only transfer if you're staying in the same console family, which is what I already said before you left the comment. I saw it from Dread and I saw it from Professional Avenger. Professional Avenger had the PlayStation 4, went to the PlayStation 5. Everything you paid money for was there. One, I do see why you're talking about Sony now. Obviously, you have a personal bias because of what you spent money on. That's fine that you have a personal bias, but you need to be more transparent about your biases. And two, you stayed in the PlayStation family. So you're leaving a misleading comment that I had previously informed you of, and therefore you are trying to twist the debate. We need to be aware and pay attention to that. So, and again, I have no problem calling you out on that. Let's be very honest. Actually, it does carry over in Destiny. If you purchase something on Destiny on Xbox, you have it on another. You have it if you go to PlayStation. Your Destiny profile completely carries over. So, again, at what point is there being an apologist for something? We've seen it work in Destiny. I have played Destiny on PC and I've played it on PS4. Everything I do carries over. So again, it's a matter of having an honest conversation. And again, all of this information is readily available on this channel. I've covered all of this news in depthly. I've shown all of it in depthly on this channel. Avery says that yes, they are biased. KOTOR is only a timed bias. Knights of the Old Republic is coming to PC at launch, which will be fine for me. Oh, hey, you're kind of naked. So Knights of the Old Republic is coming to PC and PlayStation 5 at launch, so I'll be able to play it on launch day. I'll be able to play it on launch day, but it is a 6 to 12 month exclusive console window, so it will come to the Xbox, but it's going to come to the Xbox after 6 to 12 months. Which is, again, just something worth pointing out. Again, I'm super excited for KOTOR. Back in the day when KOTOR first launched, it was an Xbox exclusive. But it was a permanent Xbox exclusive. Now KOTOR is available on everything. In terms of, but like I said, just to continuously reiterate, because of conversation being picked apart, Knights of the Old Republic, the remake, is a console launch exclusive to the PS5. It will launch day and date on the PS5 and PC, the computer, and it is only a 6 or 12 month exclusive window before it comes to the Xbox. The documents, I've seen different documents give a different timeline. It is not a permanent exclusive. In addition to that, PlayStation, let's see, you're going to be able to play Uncharted on PC. So more PlayStation games are coming to PC. So the idea of a lot of these exclusives is really just going to be timed to Windows and what Sony actually ends up keeping just for exclusives. I'm pretty certain Spider-Man will probably never leave PlayStation. It will probably not come to PC, which is fine. It's no different than Halo is never going to PlayStation, Zelda's never going to PlayStation, Metroid's never going to PlayStation, but we're all talking about something that's subjective. You know, oh, hey, I like this game. Fine. Oh, hey, I bought a PS5. I spent a lot of money on a PS5. I have a bias toward the PS5. That's fine. I bought an Xbox Series X. I have a bias toward the Xbox Series X. I spent a lot of money on it. That's fine. You bought something. You have value in that now. You made an investment, if you want to call it that. Hopefully you didn't pay scalper prices. Hopefully you didn't have to go to the aftermarket. Either way, you made an expensive purchase. That purchase now gives you a bias. It's no different with cars. You spend a lot of money on a Lamborghini, you're going to have a bias on your Lamborghini because you spent a lot of money on it. And those kind of biases play into human nature. I saw it a lot with focus testing. And I also learned I had to call it out. Because in focus testing, you have consumers come in, consumers have an idea on value, they have an idea on monetary response, they have an idea on what they've spent and what they've had at home. So when you sit down at a round table and you show consumers something, you have to come in and go, okay, I get it, but we have to leave these biases at the table. Because I need to get to the bottom of what's really going on. Your biases are clouding your judgment. What's objective? You know, what's objective? It's no different than having someone say, I don't like Halo. Okay, why don't you like Halo? It's on Xbox. What? And I had that happen before. And so we had to get to the bottom of it because it was damaging to the focus test that we were doing as a company. So you don't like Halo because it's on the Xbox, that doesn't work. So we had to unwrap that, you know, because it was important to me. I needed proper explanation. I needed to get to the bottom of it. Of course, that particular consumer had a PlayStation. It led to a bias because that's what they afforded. That's what they purchased. They did not have an Xbox. And therefore, they had a bias against Halo and without any foundation. And they had never played it. They had never played it at all. And since they had never played Halo at all, what happened? They had to be removed from the focus test because it's like, okay, you've never experienced something that I'm studying or what this research group was put together for. Your statements were misleading because you left out key information. You didn't let us know that you had never played or that you never played Halo, never had an Xbox. You didn't let us know you were only a PlayStation user. It led to a personal bias. And these things need to be confronted because subjectivity and bias is fine, but we also have to be able to have objective conversations. We have to be able to look at something objectively, have an objective truth, have an objective fact. We have to draw the line between where your opinion ends and when it gets into what is just an objective, fact and truth of it. Halo sells amazingly well. That is an objective fact. It is exclusive to Xbox. Also an objective fact. The Xbox 360 versus the PlayStation 3. Objectively, the 360 was overwhelmingly superior. That's just a fact. And it's this ebb and flow. And it is a constant ebb and flow because so many people have money in the game, so to speak, and it leads to a great deal of biases. And now those biases are permeating software like Marvel's Avengers because now you have a game where so much of the content is cosmetic and people like dressing up more than I thought they would, but they like dressing up so much that they have spent a lot of money in this game. And since they have spent so much money to dress up, to play dress up, since they've spent so much money to play dress up, they now have a personal bias with Avengers because potentially maybe they spent $500. Maybe they bought the challenge cards. Maybe they've just spent. But now they have a bias. Now they have a bias because of how much money they've put in. So now it draws the line. Okay, well, your bias is interfering with an objective truth. Your bias is interfering with a healthy debate. And that's important. And we brush those things off, and we don't really confront those issues very often, and they need to be confronted. They really do need to be confronted. I think it's wonderful that everybody has an opinion. I think that's great, but social media has elevated everyone to think that their view is the only view that matters, and at some point it's got to be confronted to be able to have actual honest conversations, because we're getting to a point that we can't have honest conversations anymore. Just like here, how often this was derailed by misinformation. And it is important to me to correct misinformation. I do not like lies. I do not like misinformation. We already lived through a presidency of misinformation. I'm kind of done with that. Let's see. Cad Bane says, do you watch Peaky Blinders? I want to. It is on my queue. I swear to you, it's on my queue. And every time I sit down to watch TV, I just turn on another anime. Like it's like I just can't get to Peaky Blinders, and I so want to watch it because I love Cillian Murphy. Is that how you pronounce his name? I'm sorry if it's wrong, but I love him, and I love the concept of the show. I saw the trailer. I want to watch it so bad, but I kid you not. Every time I sit down, it's like, oh hey, I can finally watch something. Let's watch an anime. Deadly 8 says, Greg, you are a gift from God. That is incredibly kind of you. Thank you. I kid you not. That is literally the exact same thing Josh's mom said last night. Cad Bane said, my dad's boss worked with Cillian Murphy on the show. Holy crap, really? Man, that's awesome. That's really cool. That's really, really cool. That is awesome. That's awesome. Oh, I love that. That's great. He was a prop master. That is awesome. A and Deadly 8 are both laughing. Again, I'm happy that you appreciate my humor. Okay. I just wrapped up my water. And we're at an hour. And to be frank, I'm getting hungry. Again, I want to thank all of my YouTube members for dropping in. Thank you all so much for your support, for making this content possible. As always, if you're interested in becoming a YouTube member and supporting the channel, you can follow a link at the description below. One tier, $2.99 a month. Thank you. $2.99 a month, not $299. To everyone, thank you all for dropping in and being a part of the conversation. Thank you for the healthy debate. I hope you learned something. I hope you've been informed. And I hope that we can carry on this again in the future. I really do. I absolutely appreciate it. Thank you. Please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, sharing this content with your friends across social media. I hope you've enjoyed it. This all helps immensely with YouTube's analytics and algorithms. You know the drill. You know the routine, Mac. But above all else and most importantly, and you know how we end the show by now, it is most important that you stay safe. It is most important that you take care of others. And you have a wonderful, wonderful day and have an absolutely wonderful and safe weekend. Please remember to wear a mask, and please remember, get vaccinated if you are able. Bye, everyone.